Hey guys, Jordan here, and on this interview, I interview Chitty, a real estate photographer out of Denver, Colorado. Now, Chitty has only been in the business for 5 years and has a very impressive resume. 3 things that I got out of this interview is 1, his company is already in 4 markets, and 2, he's already generated over $700K in revenue last year alone. And last but not least, he shares some great actionable items at the end of the interview, so make sure to stick around and watch the entire thing. You're gonna get a lot of value and things that you can implement in your business right away to start getting customers. Hope you enjoy the interview. Hey guys, Jordan here with Real Estate Photography Hub, and today I'm interviewing Chitty Iwoha, a real estate photographer currently out of Denver, Colorado. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day and joining me for this interview.
No problem. Appreciate it, Jordan.
Hey, so starting off, Chitty, we're gonna give the audience a little bit, let them know a little bit about yourself. We're gonna do some rapid fire questions. So when did you get into real estate photography?
Yeah, so probably I've been in the industry for about 6 years now.
Are you currently part-time or full-time?
Yeah, over a little bit over full time, you could say, but yeah, right now we've got technically 4 different locations in Anchorage, Alaska, which was home base. Then the second was Maui, Hawaii. Third was Denver, Colorado, and then most recent one was Salt Lake City, Utah. So we got a good amount of stuff going on.
Yeah, things are popping over there at Pendant Media. Anyways, let's talk about what's been your best year so far. So 5 years in the business. What's been your best year?
Yeah, so last year was our best year. We passed a little bit over 700,000 in total revenue, and then netted about 180 or so from that.
Very nice. How long did it take you to transition from a part-time real estate photographer to doing it full-time?
That's a great question. So my experience was a little unique because I was doing freelance work, right, for 3 to 4 years. That's how I got in the industry. And then prior to that, I had started a million other different businesses. So I was hungry, just chasing business while I was going through college. I was starting up like Amazon side hustles, eBay hustling, flipping stuff from Walmart and on the clearance section on eBay, and just doing every type of thing to, try to make some business stuff happen. And stumbled into video, started making money from that, got into video, got skills as video production. And then again, real estate was one sliver into that. And then basically when COVID happened, it wiped out all of the video work I had lined up. And I was like, oh shit, what am I going to do to pay bills? And I had one call from an agent that I had done work with. She was like, hey, Chitty, are you still shooting? And I was like, hell yeah, I'll head out right now. Like, I'm ready to go. Just send the address. And that was the moment I decided to fully commit, niche down, cut out every other type of work, only focus on real estate, and really build a real team in business that could run without me. So it was like a very intentional decision. I had the vision of what I wanted the team to look like and the freedom I'd eventually be able to have. And we just started hustling. But we were very fortunate because we had one main client, 2 main clients we had shot for at the time. So when I made the decision to niche down, we basically already had 2 clients that were top producing agents that I had worked with a year or 2 prior. And so basically, our first month was somewhere between 3 to 5K in revenue. Second or third month, we hit 10K and then up. And then we went into the winter season, which slowed back down. And then the first full year in business, like we ended up hitting 30, 40K months, I believe, like just off of real estate media.
Yeah, that's a quick growth to some significant numbers in the real estate media business. You mentioned that you guys did like 700K last year. How many repeat customers did it take to generate that much revenue for you guys?
That's a great question. That's super hard to say because it was broken down between the 3 different locations. So to clarify that, it wasn't 700K in one single location. It was 700K combined, which broke down to Anchorage was almost 400. And then the remaining 300 was between Denver and Hawaii, kind of split in half almost. But I would say across that, a rough guesstimate would be around 200 real estate agents across the different locations.
All right. So yeah, because I think some real estate photographers starting out, they're like, man, to get to that massive number, you're going to need a massive amount of customers. And that's not necessarily the case, right? So 200, that's a good amount of customers. And I know there's a lot of work that goes into getting that many customers, but if you get the right customers, they're going to just keep sending you stuff as long as you get the customer experience right. Otherwise, you're going to chase them out the door and they're never going to see you again.
100%.
So for a brand new somebody interested in jumping into real estate photography, do you recommend starting off as a part-time side hustle or just jumping in full-time?
Yeah, I mean, from my business experience, I would say the smartest move would be if you have some job where you can earn some steady income on the side to slowly replace. Well, first thing you should try if you're gonna make a cold plunge, like try to save up some money. I like to make moves the safe way. So like when I was starting my businesses and all those businesses I started during college, I intentionally went to college in my hometown that I got a scholarship for. So college was very cheap. I intentionally lived at home until I was like 24. And then I bought my place after starting business and making good money. So I made a lot of moves that really set me up for like a safe financial position to where I could risk more in business so that if things went wrong and didn't work out, I wasn't going to be homeless. And so that allowed me to take a lot of risks in business and figure things out quickly versus, again, like a side hustle to where you're kind of half in, half out type of thing. So, again, try to set yourself up by having like a safe financial position to start a business from, I'd say is one big thing, whether it's cash savings or just a low overhead expense. And then real estate photography is a gig to gig business. So you'll have a lot of free time between gigs that you could fill with other stuff, potentially another part-time job, or just like anything in the gig economy, like Uber Eats, door dashing, just hustle. And then any free time you're not at shoots, you can be filling in income with those type of things. That's, I think, would be a smart, like safe way to launch a business like this if I was going to restart.
Yeah. All right. So let's go back to your origin story about Pendant Media and how did you actually get into real estate photography?
Yeah. Great question. So yeah, I got to shout out one of my OG clients, Jocelyn. So back in the day, you can imagine 5 years ago, Chitty just figuring out business, not knowing nothing about sales or marketing, and just out there hustling. That was a big thing. Like my drive and ambitious, I was just out there shaking hands, meeting people, and just opening up doors for myself. So that was one of the biggest things. Like starting out, you can't expect the business to just create itself. You're gonna have to go out, make it happen, shake hands, be uncomfortable, learn new skill sets and make things happen instead of being reactive and waiting for business to come to you. But back in the day when I was in that, again, I was just chasing any type of project I could get my hands on. One thing that came up was some work for a really awesome modern home builder. And so I started doing a couple videos with him. I met him actually at a networking event. I was filming a video for this networking event. I met him there, found out he's a home builder, shook his hand. He mentioned wanting to do some video stuff, followed up proactively, closed the deal with him at a no-brainer price, super cheap, but I went all out because again, I was in the mindset of just being the best and hustling. And so from that content of working with that home builder, his agent that represented him as a home builder saw my work, was like, oh wow, that's great stuff. Um, uh, do you work with agents? And I was like, sure, we can. And I ended up closing her on a pretty sweet deal. She saw the talent and the kind of new stuff I was doing at the time. She made a very smart deal and proposed a exclusive retainer with me. And so
Really?
at the time, again, if you can imagine a college kid living at home, 3,000 a month sounded like $1 million to me. And I was like, heck yeah, and signed it as quickly as possible. But it was really clutch because I was making great money. The shoots only took me an hour or two. And in my college schedule, I could work with them, make almost a full-time income just from one client and still have time to do other work. It was sweet. And it gave me the runway to work with the top producer, figure out what the market needed, test new things, get feedback from clients early on to really build like a solid shoot foundation of what like a product market fit in my market was, like what agents needed, how to shoot it, how to deliver it, figure out all my systems in a way to where the client wouldn't fire me because I was on retainer. So she would just give me
Right,
feedback,
right.
I would fix it, and then we could improve quickly. So that was my very first client. Again, I did that for like 2 years with these clients, exclusive with them, not working with anyone else. And then COVID, the contract was up, COVID happened, wiped out the video work and the option of like, do I re-sign up this contract? Do I don't know, get another job? I did also have like a random 100K job offer from some corporate company I worked with at the time that I was like debating taking or not,
Yeah, yeah.
because I was also in like a lot of debt at the time as well through basically my dad passed away. I had to rise up as like leader of the household and like get us through financially while being in early years of business. And as part of that, just a lot of debt piled up, just paying bills, not even just like consumer debt. I wasn't buying anything ridiculous. I was just like survive, helping like my family like survive basically. So I had those three options: start this new business, take this 100K job offer, and relocate to Seattle, Washington, or re-sign up that contract, which was like a safe bet with them. And I had a friend at the time, shout out to Keanu, that basically was like, "You're capable of a lot. Like you can do this. Like you have the traits to really do this thing. Like you should aim big, go for it." And I did exactly that. So decided to do my own thing, commit to branching on my own, commit to building a real team, a real business that could run without me, that had systems and trained people and processes. And yeah, that's how that ended up playing out pretty well.
So let's talk about, so like, you've achieved a good amount of success, only 5 years into the business. And actually in those 5 years, are you counting those 2 years with Jocelyn? Yeah. So
Yeah, including those 2 years.
yeah.
Yeah, so
So
most of the
really
disbanded growth has been,
it's been like 3 years. So it's been, you've made a lot of moves in a short period of time. Talk to us about some of the struggles and maybe the successes, in expanding and maybe some of those challenges early on.
yeah, I'll talk about my biggest win or like defining moment that I'm proud of. That was like a big milestone entrepreneur. I'll talk about the biggest low side of the worst part.
Yeah, let's
So
do
the
it.
worst part, we'll start with that, was actually I made a lot of moves and execute quickly, and I just realized that I can be very overly ambitious. And I remember we had a call, and you talked about being a race car, and if you drive a race car too fast, you can get off the course and crash, right? And that's basically what I was doing. I was so ambitious for growth that I wasn't focused, and I started just adding stuff onto my plate, starting new businesses. So after I started just penning and got it to a sizable point, which was like in my head, 30, 40K a month was like more money I've ever seen. And I kind of got naive and just was like, cool, I made it. Like 30, 40K a month. I'm not shooting too much. I'm not editing anything. I'm not even managing the business. Like I made it. I can chill out, go start other things. And I did. And I went and started basically another location. I took on three private coaching clients, like other real estate photographers, like one-on-one coaching agreements with them to like consulting work. I started a course. I bought a fourplex and renovated it myself. Like took a full month off and like was in there doing flooring, like
Oh
hammering
yeah.
demolition. And then if that wasn't enough, I started a marketing agency on top of that. So if you just could imagine one person running literally 6 to 7 different businesses, all completely separate, and doing none of them effectively because I had no team. Everything again was all dependent on me, besides the real estate listing media stuff. Um, it was not a recipe for success by any means. And that was definitely my lowest point where I was the most stressed out, I was the most down, I was the most unhappy in life. Um, and just really needed to find clarity on what I was doing, why I was doing it. And it took a long time, like surprisingly long time. Um, Pretty much the first half of 2022 was spent undoing all of those mistakes. And so the lesson in that, that if you're going to be in business, if you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're committed to growing, being successful in a business, you need to be doing one thing and do it really well and put on your blinders to literally every other thing. My biggest mistake was always kind of, it's like the grass is greener type of mentality of like, oh, my business is making me money, but this business model over here could be making me way more, or this thing
Right,
over
right.
here could be making me way more. Um, and there's opportunities for starting other businesses, but as an entrepreneur, but you need to make sure your team can actually like run and grow without you. My business could operate at a baseline level without me, but it could not grow. And that was the big lesson learned in that. So basically focus, doing only one thing at a time, and just being patient and knowing that every business has its pros and cons. And you could think from the outside, this other business is way better and can make you $1 million in 90 days. But
Right,
in
right, right.
reality, it's going to have so many things that you didn't expect, and your skill sets that you had in this business probably won't apply to that one. And so it's not going to play out how you think. So be focused. Don't start other things. Focus on one thing at a time and get really, really good at it and scale it as far as it can go. The one caveat with that is if you're in a business model that actually can't scale, like doesn't have much opportunity to scale, that would be the caveat to where maybe it makes sense to actually make sure you're in a business model that can scale. For example, if you're like a barber and trying to scale business, as a barber, you can only cut so many heads in a day.
Right, right,
But if you switched from barber to owning barber shops, you could have 10, 20, 30 barber shops. So that's like the difference in thinking on that.
right.
That was the lowest point. I was very stressed out, very unhappy, and spent literally 6 months undoing all of that work.
And I'll just chime in here for a second. I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs deal with. You know, that shiny object syndrome, or like you see this trending thing, or this not necessarily a get rich quick scheme, but you look at something like, oh, I can maybe make more money, you know. And I've experienced the same things in my careers where we're like, oh, I'm gonna go do this, and then you might invest a good amount of money into this, and you're like, you know what, I just need to get rid of that, and then you know, that lesson that you talk. I guess we can talk a little bit more about focus on it, but I think that's super important for entrepreneurial success. But anyways, let's talk about your high point. We talked about the low point, right?
Cool. Yeah. So if we switch reverse that, the high point, I want to think it's the years have flown past. So I believe it was no, it was actually the summer of 2021. So 2 summers ago now, not last summer, the previous summer. But it was I read this book called Clockwork by Mike. He has a long last name, but a good book on basically like systematizing your business. Again, when I started my business, it was the difference of before I'd been a freelancer and had everything was on my shoulders, had to shoot everything, had to edit everything, had to talk to clients myself, had to do all the customer service all myself. And so when I set out to build Just Pen It, I imagined and had this vision for like a real team, something that could eventually run without me on a day-to-day basis. And again, could like be separate from just everything having to go through me. And so summer of 2021, which were pretty much at that point a little bit over a year in business, probably 8 to 10 months, I had planned a trip for 2 weeks with a bunch of friends to Las Vegas and Las Vegas in California. So it was like a 2 week trip and it was in the middle of busy season. So it was like right in June or July. And for real estate, we're a real estate photographer. That's where we make the most money. That's where things are popping. That's where all the dollars are to be made in this industry. So the idea of leaving when I had like a baseline new team for 2 weeks and have it run without me. And like my plan was to dip and like not even any calls, no texts, no
Right, right,
emails.
right.
I had hired a manager. I had hired pretty much 3 to 5 shooters, and I was gonna really like distance myself fully. And I was like, only hit me up if it's an emergency. And so basically all that to say, we really worked on that. I had to work through creating management systems and like SOPs on like how to reschedule shoes and how to deal with this and how to deal with that. And just a whole new level of systems and processes to fully replace the stuff I was doing and hire someone to learn and train on that stuff. And basically, yeah, I was able to tune out from the business for a full 2 weeks. I got like two calls or emails, and they were mostly from my manager saying he was really overwhelmed. And I was like, "It's all
Yeah,
right, you got it, man." I was like, "Dude, you're doing great. Like, just keep doing your thing. You got it." And it wasn't even really any issues. It's just him being stressed out. And I was like, "Yep,
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah,
how business works during busy season." But I was able to make, I don't know what the number was exactly, but in that 2 weeks, probably made 15 to 20K in revenue while I was like spend almost zero time on the business and have everything run smooth. Clients were happy and no, nothing blew up. And I was out in Vegas partying with
yeah.
friends and went to Disneyland afterward and was having a bunch of fun riding rides and all that stuff. And it was just like the first real moment in my life. That was when I realized like that vision I set out when I first started Just Pen It of a business that could run without me, that could be successful without everything flowing through me and being dependent on me, like was happening. It was like my first moment I realized that part of that had came true. And so that was really, really awesome.
Yeah, and if you are a real estate photographer and you're working on scaling your team, I think that's a great way to force yourself to make sure you have all the checks and balances and systems in place. Like I remember several years ago, I was like, you know, I'm gonna take a 3 or 4 week trip. We did like a whole West Coast. I'm like, all right, what do I need to do, and what people do I need to put in place, and what processes and procedures do you need to put in place to make that happen? Because it's definitely not easy, but you know, it's something that you might just, oh, I'm just keep going busy in the busy, you know, in the hustle and bustle of the business. But I think it's important to test your team. You know, some people will rise to the occasion. You'll see like who those people you can rely on, you know, where are the holes in your business, because those are the things that you're going to be getting calls about. Hey, we have a question, you know, you need not necessarily obviously hold your team accountable, but also, you know, empower them to make decisions, right? You say, you know, this is, give them like standards and expectations, right? I know that you'll make the right decision. If you were the customer, what would be the correct thing to do, or stuff like that. So I think a lot of business owners, especially when you transition, they want to be the decision maker, but you really gotta put that on your team, right? And just trust them. And obviously, not every decision is going to be made absolutely correctly. And maybe when one's would have done it a little bit different. Maybe you have a little bit of a conversation, but it's not like, why did you do that? It's like, hey, if that situation comes up in the future, let's handle it. What's a better way that we could have handled it or something, from a development. Then you're developing a
100%.
team that, they feel like they don't need your input all the time. And I think that honestly, that just makes a better work environment, because I can give something of my business to somebody and be like, hey, I have all the confidence in you. You can make this happen. And I think that's really important when you're growing outside of, testing your business and your systems that you have in place, and then just making a good work environment for your team as well, and developing
100%.
future managers and future people that you can rely on in your business. All right, so let's go back to let's talk a little bit about lessons learned on focus, because you took a good 6 months, you said, to kind of figure it out. And what were those big lessons that you learned by being focused in business?
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing, like if you look at what caused me to be unfocused or distracted, that's a good place to start, right? Because there's a reason why I was unfocused, and it was because this grass is greener, thinking there's other models that could make me way more money than what I was currently doing. The reality is, there's always going to be that thought there, right? Especially as an entrepreneur, we're like open-minded, we like to see opportunities and take advantage of them. But you can't take advantage of every opportunity at once. You're only one person, and it's very obvious. It's like the little phrase that's like the wolf who chases two rabbits catches none. But basically, just the idea that you can't be going all in on two things at once. You're going to be split if you do anything more than one. Um, and so basically, I had to really soul search a little bit on why am I chasing all this other stuff? Like, why do I feel the need to like go out and start other things versus focus on doing more of the things? And like one of it was boredom. So I realized that I just was bored of the work because it had gotten easy. I had hired the team, I had delegated all the stuff, and I didn't have to do anything. So instead of pushing that thing further, I looked at other things that like that novelty of something new and fresh and exciting is way more exciting to work on than what you've been doing for the past 3 to 5 years already. So that was a big thing of like squishing that. I had to realize, okay, the way to build big businesses and scale and to make more money and have this team and this vision that I really want is by just doing more, as Alex Tramosi says, like do the boring work, just doing more of what you've been doing, getting better at it, making improvements to it, right? Making the client experience better, making improvements over time to your customer service, the deliverables, the services you're offering to clients, how you market, how you sell to clients, all of that instead of doing completely new things. So that was one of the biggest things. And then um, again, so that kind of helped kill, that grass is greener mentality. It's like, okay, if I want to make more money, I just need to put more into my current business, not start anything else. So I had to kind of mentally work on that for a good period of time. And then just realizing that if you look at almost any successful, again, adding to that, like successful entrepreneur at a high level, like they didn't get there. My favorite example is Alex talks about this in his podcast, but like he's like Mark Zuckerberg wasn't having a side hustle when he built Facebook, right? It's like Elon Musk, probably same thing. Well, Elon's a different beast.
Yeah.
I don't want to bring up him. He's like the one
Yeah,
example
he's
of
a
someone who could just
he.
do a million
Yeah,
things. I'm not even going to bring him up, but for 99% of people, one thing and that's it. And then the last thing was more recently from a mentor. He was like, "Hey, Chitty, like, because I still struggle with two a bit. It was like beginning of this year, I was like really trying to soul search, and like now that I had delegated, like, got rid of all the extra stuff, I was back to a place where I just pen it in front of me, and I was like, what do I want to do now? Like, where do I want to really take this thing? He was like, Chitty, let's fast forward 10 to 15 years. Imagine like 40-year-old Chitty. I'm 26 now, so like 10 to 15 years, 40-year-old Chitty. One version of Chitty number one, continues on the same path you've been on. Like keeps starting new things, thinking that this next thing is the bigger thing over and over again. But every couple of years starts it, gets distracted, starts another thing, gets distracted, starts another thing. And then compare that versus a Chitty that just commits to what you're currently doing and goes really deep and like learns how to build a team, learns how to grow bigger than how you've grown, learns how to really scale a company instead of just to a few $100,000, but to a few $1 million per year. Like, what are the skill sets, character traits, things you'll need to learn to do that? And then you compare those two 40-year-old chitties, which are still young in the whole, life, still very young, have plenty of time to do other things. Which one's going to kill the other one in business in any other venture after that point? It was very obvious when he said that. It's like, okay, this makes sense. Like, I don't need to do this just because my business kind of deserves me to be there and present in it and focus on it, but also because what I'll learn going through this process, even if there's something out there that could make me more money per time invested, is what's going to build the character traits, the mindset, the skill sets within me that will make me successful no matter what I do in the future. And so when I kind of accepted that, I was like, it's not even just about the money, it's about who I'm going to become, the discipline I'll create, the mindset and skill sets and beliefs I'll create myself that will apply to anything I do in the future. And that is where the real value is, not just the business model itself and the money I'll make.
Right.
So that was like that was the big tipping point that really, really made me commit to just pushing this thing as far as it can go for the next few years. And I could be proud that I did that, versus continuing to jump from thing to thing.
Right. And what advice would you give to a beginner that's maybe struggling to pick up new customers? Because I recently put out a poll on my YouTube channel, and that was like 75% customer acquisition. So that's why I'm touching on this topic. What advice would you give to somebody?
So yeah, here's the funny thing. In this business, um, most people think what's going to make you a ton of money is the quality of the photos, the expensiveness of your gear, the quality and the cinematic shots in your videos, and it's not. What's going to make you a lot of money is your ability to go out and get new clients. And so instead of spending 70 to 90% of your time as a new person, like going into gear, looking up the best lenses, looking at the best editing techniques, looking at the best shots you can get out of property, you really should be flipping that, get good enough to where clients will be happy with the quality of photo and video, and
Right.
spend 80 to 90% of your time just getting clients. And if you do that, you're going to be able to scale way further than the guy who likes to geek out over tech stuff and camera settings all day on Facebook groups. And
Right.
there's a couple of people that I'm calling out with that. It's a trend in our industry, man. It's crazy out here. The amount of
Yeah.
time I just see people spending in these Facebook threads, nerding out over gear. And don't get me wrong, if you enjoy doing that and you're happy with the money you make, more power to you. But if you're complaining about the amount of money you make while you're spending 2, 3, 4 hours a day chatting on Facebook groups, then it's pretty obvious what your problem is.
Yeah, you need to take that time and dedicate that towards whatever activity. Honestly, I give out so many different, recommendations, but it's all about contacts and building relationships. However you do that, phone call, mail, text, email, like however you can connect with somebody potentially, you know, I mean, do that, It's all, everybody has the same 24 hours in a day. So however you're able to maximize your time, if you're successful or not successful, you're going to have to look back at, okay, how did I spend my time, and just kind of dive in, right? And what changes do you need, and hold yourself accountable. For me, I like to do random things, like just to try to push myself. Like, I'm going to run at least 2 miles every day for 365 days straight. Like that. Right now I'm doing 100 pull-ups every single day just to see what happens. But, I like to but if you
Awesome.
do the same thing on the customer contact thing, right? Like, I'm
Yeah.
going to do 100 contacts every single day for 3 months and see what happens. Like
Yeah.
what do you have to lose? You sometimes it takes some type of challenge like that, and I like to throw that out there. That's what kind of helps me. I'm like, oh, I'm going to be doing this today. Obviously, you're not going to like everything you do. It's not necessarily fun. Let me make these phone calls or whatever, but you get in the rhythm, you start to do it, and maybe you start to actually get good at it, and you find it easy, and then maybe you don't like that activity, but then you train somebody else how to do what you did that made you successful or whatever, like whatever. Anyways, that's just a 2 cents for me. But I
100%.
know we're just about out of time. So if people want to reach out to you and figure out more about your business, I think you have a really unique, obviously busy guy, but how do people connect with you on socials and whatnot?
Yeah, real quick, I want to give someone tactical. I feel like I gave a very vague answer. And if me listening to this podcast and you asked about clients and I gave that vague answer, spend
Oh,
90% of your time. It's like that's a high level
all right.
thing to
All
say,
right,
which is
let's
still
get a
true.
nitty
But as a
gritty.
tactical thing,
There we go.
the two things that have gotten us the most amounts of clients has been reaching out to clients on social media asking to do business, and you're just opening the conversation. Like Jordan said, you're creating relationships. So the more amount of relationships with people that could hire you to do what you offer as your business, the more opportunities you'll get to do business with new clients. So focus on creating those relationships, reaching out on social media. One of the easiest ways to start is literally send the text, copy and paste this, try it a bunch of times. Let me know how it works out. Hey, comma, how's business? To a real estate agent on social media. Try it out and take it from there. There's going to be a lot of options that go, but that's going to prompt them to respond. And if you do that enough times, you're going to open up opportunity. A conversation will come up for them to hire you for the next listing.
And what do you
Number two,
do? Oh, sorry. Never mind. Go ahead.
what was that?
No, I was
No,
gonna
no, no.
say, I
I'll
was gonna
answer.
say, like, how do you get over that? Stop texting me or this. You know how people respond. Like some people take it personally. Like, what do you like?
So we don't cold text. So cold text is like the boundary we try not to cross. But on social media, it's built for networking and connecting with people, right?
Right,
So
right.
go ahead and follow them, like some of their posts, comments on some of their posts, and then after they follow you back or you see they checked out your profile, send them a message. Hey, how's business? Start a conversation. Like it could literally be as simple as that. And for people, like it's about like the number of doors you open, I guess, or amount of opportunities you create. Not every single time. You're not going to be able to do that five or 10 times and get a new client. But like Jordan said, if you did that 100 times every single day, it would be very, very unlikely you don't gain at least a handful of clients within a 30-day period. But most people aren't willing to put in the work like that. Most people would rather sit back and just do the easy stuff, post on social media a little bit and wait for clients to come to them or mess with their website or mess with their new camera gear or shop for new camera gear. But that's not going to get you clients. The second thing is cold calling. I've actually had like a decent amount of success with cold calling. It's literally the number one least favorite thing I like to do in business for sure. But again, it's about doing what it takes to grow your business. And so I can think of, at least in our Maui location, in the early days of getting off the ground when we had zero clients, that's where we started, just straight cold calling top producing agents in the area. And I'll just call and just say something like, "Hey, this is Chitty. The reason for my call is that I noticed that you're not doing video on social media or anything. We're a local real estate media business. We would love to offer free video on your next listing. Would you be open to that? Would you be interested in that?" And this particular client said, "No, I'm not interested." And I was like, "Oh, well, why not?" And again, when I'm cold calling, when I'm doing sales, I try to jump over like two hoops in my mind mentally, like two objections. If I jump over two of them and on the third one they still deny me, it's like, all right, I'll let them have it. It's like, okay, have a nice day. But on that first one, usually it's because people don't like to be interrupted. So they're just trying to get you off the phone so they can go back to what they want to do. So if you try to jump over and show like you're genuine, you're a real person, you're actually trying to help them, and just asking open-ended questions, sometimes it can prompt them out of that automatic response of saying no. Because saying no is a lot easier than saying yes and committing to something. So people will default to saying no. So if you jump over that, in that case, I was like, oh, why not? Like, you wouldn't be interested in a free video. Why wouldn't you be interested in that? It's like, oh, well, actually, tell me a little bit more. And I was like, cool. So we just launched a real estate media business. We really focus on four things. We're a one-stop shop. We do next morning turnaround. We do this, and this. And I just started riffing on a couple things. I'd love to set up a time this week to talk a little bit more on what we could do for your company. And he was like, cool. Yeah, like let's set up a time, book that call. And that client literally went on to I think so. That was in like November, December. So slow season. It was right before the New Year's. And I remember literally less than 2 weeks later after we had the meeting that went well. It was right before New Year's, like literally New Year's Eve. My business partner texted me. He was like, yo, that client that you cold called wants to wire us $8,000 right before tax because they need a write off. They want to prepay 2 months of a retainer. He was like, should we accept it? And I was like, bro, what? I need you, dude. If you don't send that invoice right now, dude, I'm gonna fly over there. And but yeah, it was a really cool moment, and we ended up collecting 8K upfront as a tax write. They just wanted it off their books or whatever, and they committed at the same time to working with us. And since then, that client has consistently pretty much paid us 4K a month. So that one cold call equaled to this point pretty much close to 100K in actual revenue, and not like an inflated number that people talk about, but like actual dollars that I could track back and pull up in our Stripe or bank account deposits from this specific client, all tracing back to me doing the hard work, and then also putting in the extra work of trying, not taking no for an answer. That
Right, right.
tenacity, that willing to overcome objections and like get what you want out of life is what made that happen. So again, take from that, be hungry, go out there and put in the work that you don't want to, because that's what's going to grow your business. Focus on things that are going to bring in dollars to your business, and not just all the other nerdy camera stuff photographers love to talk about. And your business will grow. Promise you that.
Dude, it's great, great insight. I mean, great activity as well. I'm gonna do some cold calls. I'm gonna record them, and
There you go.
hey, but tell us, that wasn't your first call, right? Just so that people can understand, that wasn't the first time you picked up the phone. You probably made some
Right.
calls before that, but overcoming objections, like great tips for people in sales that are just starting. Maybe they're a creative and they don't have that skills. You could take exactly what Chitty just said and just use it, call people and offer free video. And if they tell you no, then ask them why not, like you can't take rejection too personal in this business or in sales, right? Like,
Yeah. And I will have to say, leading up to that, we had probably gotten 20 no's like on that same day, right? But it
right.
was the 21st call that ended up being the one that made us 50K a year. So it
Yeah.
wasn't the first 19 that I was focused on. I was just hunting for that one yes. Like someone out there is going to say yes to me. If you have that mentality, have that belief, and you show up each call with enthusiasm, believing this might be the one, this might be the one, this might be the one, doors will open. Like opportunities will find
And
themselves.
then look at that. You maybe spent 2 hours making calls. Maybe it was something, oh, I'm going to be doing this activity on a reoccurring basis. In that time, that one deal, 8 grand, like you just made ridiculous ROI on your time just by willing to overcome objections and take the time to connect with real estate agents and build those relationships. And even if those
Yep,
people,
100%.
even those people that say no, like you're still like, we'll get no sometimes or this or that, or like some emails we'll send out and then they'll reply to a really old email. People need to know who you are and what you do. And like an email, a phone call, like you're just planting little seeds all over the place for potentials later, right? If you have to be willing to put in the work and do the activities. Anyways,
100%.
great, great tips and advice for brand new real estate photographers. So how do people,
Appreciate it.
find out about Just Penned It or yourself on social media? Because you
For
got some
sure.
great things going for you.
Yeah, so I will say this. We're not currently taking on any new partners, but to date, we've partnered with 3 remote locations from when we first started in Anchorage, Alaska. And basically, predictably, 3 times in a row, we're on our 4th time able to scale from 0 to over 150K in 12 months in each market we've entered. And so moving forward, we're currently pausing on that just to continue to grow our locations. But in the near future, we will be continuing to expand, and we'll be looking for hungry people that are ready to like grow a business, and don't need necessarily business experience coming in. We provide all the business know-how, the systems of how to get started, how to get clients, how to fulfill for clients, and all the editing teams. They just need to show up with the hunger to be ambitious, growth, operate a business, and have success as quickly as possible. So for anyone out there that maybe doesn't want to embark on this journey of starting their business alone and would rather have kind of a fast track way to starting a real estate media business that they can be proud of, I'd be happy to start some of those conversations. We're not currently taking on new partnerships, but I believe by the end of the year, we should be in a position to do that. So I'd be happy to at least have the conversation. If not, we can still chat a little bit, and I'll be able to provide you with tips and tricks on how you can do it on your own. If you guys are interested in that or want to start a conversation, you can reach me at chittyproductions@gmail.com. That's CHIDEI productions with an S at gmail.com, or check me out on Instagram at chitty, CHIDI underscore gains with a Z. CHIDI underscore gains with a Z. I was back from my fitness days back in the day, but you'll see a little bit on that if you look me up on Instagram.
Sweet, Chitty. Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day and joining me on this interview. Fantastic, and I'm excited to see where you take your business next. So, thanks so much for your
Appreciate it,
time,
Jordan.
and we'll see you guys on the next one.